I'm sure someone saw the thumbnail and said, what a dummy! He doesn't even know what book he's reviewing. It's Wolves of the Calla and he's got a copy of Salem's Lot. Well, read and find out. Time is a face on the water. We spread the time as we can, but in the end, the world takes it all back. No one ever does live happily ever after, but we leave the children to find that out for themselves. How you feel and how long you feel, it doesn't always have a lot to do with objective truth. It was the possibility of darkness that made the day seem so bright. Here is your May. Here is the good turn, the fortunate meeting, the fever that broke just before dawn and left your blood calm. Here is the wish that came true and the understanding eye. Here is the kindness you were given and thus learned to pass on. Here is the sanity and the clarity that you thought were lost. Here, everything is all right. But I wanted to say goodbye to someone and have someone say goodbye to me. The goodbyes we speak and the goodbyes we hear are the goodbyes that tell us we're still alive. Long days and pleasant nights, my Ka-tet. We are back again to talk some Tower, some Dark Tower. Stephen King's Dark Tower with book number 5. This is, of course, Wolves of the Calla. Now, this was released in 2003, 6 years after Wizard and Glass. And honestly, guys, it was a book that we never thought that we would get because if you were under a rock, you didn't know Stephen King did have his big accident where he was basically on death's door between book 5 and 6, between book 4 and 5, and many of us had thought that we were never going to get this book. In fact, guys, this was my Dance with Dragons before Dance with Dragons. Like, literally, this was my one that was like, he's never going to finish it, it's never going to come out. And then I was like, wow, and now he's going to die. And that's kind of how I felt about it. But it's a book that, like I said, many people didn't think we were ever going to get. Then it kind of harbored a lot of mixed reactions when it did come. So myself, this was the first time that I had to wait for a Dark Tower book, and what an incredibly long wait that it was. So I remember being, I don't want to say disappointed, but maybe underwhelmed would be a better phrase when I read it for the first time at 25 years old. So how did I feel reading it again at 43? Well, we're going to talk about it and more, guys. But let's begin like usual. What is this story about? Now, Roland and his Tet have just returned to the path of the beam when they discover that they are being followed by a group of inexperienced trackers. These trackers are from the town of Calibrin Sturgis, and they desperately need the help of gunslingers. Once every generation, a band of masked riders known as wolves gallop out into the dark land of Thunderclap to steal half of all the twins born in the Callas. When the children return, they are mentally and physically ruined. In less than a month, the wolves will raid again. In exchange for Roland's aid, a priest offers to give Roland a powerful but evil relic which he has hidden below the floorboards of his church. Not only must Roland and his Tet discover a way to defeat the invincible wolves, but they must also return to New York so that they can save our world's incarnation of the Dark Tower from the machinations of the evil Sombra Corporation. So, guys, what a wild, wild twist this story is going to take with this book. Now, in case you don't know, guys, I am not going to do spoilers on these. However, I will talk about some events that happened in those first 4 books. So if you want to remain completely spoiler-free, I say read at least the first 4 books before you watch this video, because I've got to talk about where these characters are right now. So don't worry if you haven't read Wolves of the Calla yet, but you need to have read up through Wizard and Glass. But let's get into what makes it good or bad. And I like to start with the good because, guys, top 5 fantasy series from all time. There's going to be a lot of good here. I love that the multiverse characters are coming to the forefront. This is something I've been talking about while I was going through Into the Multiverse, talking about how he started to let Dark Tower bleed over more into his non-Dark Tower books. And this is the first one where he's like, you know what? I'm going to kind of give back. I'm going to give some things from my multiverse a real big spotlight, because it's just been really Easter eggs a lot up to this point. This is the first time that there is a major character from within the multiverse that shows up in this book. Now, I'm not going to tell you what character that is, because I want you to be surprised when you get to it. But I truly do hope, guys, you have read Salem's Lot before you read this book. Yes, that is why I have it in the thumbnail, because, guys, this is basically the spiritual successor to Salem's Lot. It very much, if there was a sequel, this was it. And the reason I say you need to read this beforehand, guys, is because the character that does show up from this does spoil everything that happens in this book. And this is one of Stephen King's best books. So I really just don't want you to have it spoiled for you, because it's just that good. But I think, yeah, anytime you've got him introducing more and more multiverse characters directly into the Dark Tower, it just feels like, wow, this really is just this huge, expansive world. But this thing is, this character has a backstory of not just what happened to Salem's Lot, but everything that's happened in the years between that and now. And it's just riveting. It's kind of that thing where I was kind of disappointed when this came out, because I didn't feel like they made a lot of progress towards the tower. And but one thing about this is that you are so captivated by this character's story that you don't mind, taking a break from the main story at this point. Now, I know for some people that might be a little rough, because you just had a big book with a long flashback. You might be like, okay, look, I'm ready to get on towards that tower. We are coming up towards the end here. So that might bother you a little bit, but if you just let go and just trust where he's taking you, this character's story is really, really good. But I love that this story kind of feels like a throwback to like a Magnificent Seven or a Seven Samurai. There's these people who are defending this helpless town from, insurgents. It's a really, really great story that's been told a million times. It never really kind of goes out of style. You can tell it's very much an influence here. Obviously, Sergio Leone's, Man with No Name has always been a big influence on Dark Tower. He really, really wears it on his sleeve here. And I think he just continues this fascinating blending of Western, fantasy, and sci-fi. This one doesn't have very much horror. I mean, it has some horrific things. I mean, you do have people dying in horrific ways. So there is some things. But really, I wouldn't classify any horror in this book, as much as there's a lot of sci-fi in here. But again, it feels like a Western in a fantasy setting. It's really, really cool. Fantasy in a Western setting, I guess I'd say. So it's kind of both ways. It really, really does. I love that he's able to continue to just kind of mash up these genres the way that he does. A new wrinkle to Susanna's character in this, you do have these questions. After Wizard and Glass, okay, is she pregnant? Is she having Eddie's baby? Or is this the demon baby? What's going on? I won't tell you guys how long we theorized about this for 6 years. Yes, I used to go to old StephenKing.com, the bulletin board system they had there. I believe it was StephenKing.com. It might have been something. It might have been DarkTower.com. I don't remember. We did use bulletin board system waiting for this book. That's how long ago it was, guys. Yes, I am that old. If you don't know what a bulletin board system is, Google that. It's really, really fun. But we had all kinds of speculation about this. So you get those new wrinkles to her character, as well as maybe some more changes to her personality that we've seen, multiple times in the series now. And we actually get like a new wrinkle, I think, to that. And some good, some we'll talk about in a minute. I do like a little bit of, while Roland is still very straight edge and he is cold, and he says some things, he drops some truth bombs on some of the townsfolk in this book. And it's like, damn, he is cold-blooded, right? But I do still feel like there's a little bit of a softening. You kind of got that softening in Wizard and Glass, seeing how close he had gotten with the Ka-tet. You kind of get a little bit more of that here. I mean, there might or might not be a dance number in this. That's all I'm saying. So I do like seeing the humanizing of Roland. He's not just a robot anymore. He's very much kind of getting loose and trying to enjoy himself a little bit. So I think really getting that story off his back in the last book really kind of helped him exorcise some demons, Eddie in this, guys. Eddie has come full circle. He is a straight up badass gunslinger in this one. He does not lose. I mean, he is just awesome in this. He does have a moment where some things are going on and you're going to start to question some things. But as far as when it comes to being a gunslinger, his transition is almost pretty much complete. He is pretty much large and in charge. No more of this, I don't want no smoke. He's like, tell me what I want to know, you son of a bitch, or you're going to get it. He really is very much in charge. Anytime anyone, I mean, you know how like people used to look at him like he was goofy? No one's doing that anymore. No one looks at him like he's goofy anymore. He's not the goofball anymore. He really much is now just very much a gunslinger, and you love to see it. It's just incredible growth for this character, and it's why I love him so much. But I love that Stephen continues to play with time and space in such a fascinating, fun way. We kind of talked about the Thinny last time, and I kind of told you guys a little bit about 2-Space. Well, you get a lot more about Tadash in this one, a lot more. And there's some things it's not going to work for everybody because it is going to kind of seem very like dream sequency. And yeah, it is. It's very much, like you're tripping. I mean, I imagine, I don't trip, but I imagine this is what tripping's like. And we know that Stephen King used to trip quite a lot. He was sober at this point, though, by the way. But as long as it took him to write some of these books, who knows? Who knows if he was sober? Anyway, that's a conversation that he seemed to have. Every time I bring up that he's sober at this point, people are like, well, But yeah, I think that you get a lot more answers to some things, too. Some lingering questions, namely Black 13 and the Rose. You get that stuff about the Rose in Wastelands. You get a little bit more. You get a lot more about it in this one. Black 13 you learned about in Wizard and Glass. Well, you're going to get some more answers about it and what it's actually capable of in this book. But I think it's the mystery of what the wolves are, why they're taking these children, and what they're doing with them for when they return them. They're ruined, as he put it, ruined. He said ruined. You know how they have the fun spelling in the series. But yeah, it's one of those questions you gotta have. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Why do they look like this? Because if you look at the art, or he describes it in here, but there is art of it where it's just like, yeah, it does look kind of like Doctor Doom with a lightsaber. So you have all kinds of questions about it. So you got lots of mystery all through this book, and and one hell of a standoff. It does have a long standoff. And or you're waiting for that standoff there at the end, and it's a good payoff. It is a good payoff. But guys, as always, there is no perfect with these books. So let's talk about maybe the not so good. This is some stuff that didn't necessarily not work for me. It might not work for you, or other way around. You might be fine with it. It might have just bothered me a little bit. I talked about the standoff there. There is a long build to this big standoff, and it's kind of like over. It's just like really quick. It is a really quick sequence. It's awesome. Don't get me wrong. You get to see everyone be just awesome gunslingers. It's really, really cool. But yeah, it is very much a very quick sequence. It's kind of like I compare it to Phantom Menace, which I know nobody wants to compare anything to Phantom Menace, about how you had like that long, slow build, and then the action scene was awesome, but 5 minutes it was over. Kind of feels like that here. It really is great, but it does have a long build. I think it's a good payoff, and you might be a little disappointed about it. Obviously, like I said, not much progress towards the tower. Now, some people will debate that. There's some stuff going on in the other worlds in these, but as far as like Roland's world, not very much progress towards the actual physical tower, and I think that might be a drag for some people. In some ways, I do think it's kind of felt like a step back for Susanna's character. Now, I understand what he's trying to do here, but everything was just like, she's not just acting out of character, she's just sidelined a lot, and I don't like that. I didn't like that very much. I love her scenes with Eddie. Her and Eddie, it's like one of those things where I said, all the way back when I reviewed Drawing of the Three, I said, I don't like insta-love, guys, and it's here. I'm gonna nick it for that. But I feel like the build's been good enough that now I really do enjoy these two together. But some of the stuff that he's doing with her in this book, I wasn't wild about. I was like, really? Again, it's kind of had the problem I had with Rhythm of War, by Brandon Sanderson, where you have resolved this thing with this character's multiple personalities. Now you're going back on it. I don't know. That's something that's like, well, let's see where it goes after this. And look, guys, some of the meta world-breaking stuff that he does in this, it might work for you, it might not. I lean on the side where it was something I did not really like about the series. Now, don't let that sway how you feel about it, because on my Discord, 9 out of 10 people like it. Okay, so they're fine with it. What's coming in the next book is what really, really upset me about this series, and you kind of get a tease of it here. But so that's something that's just going to depend on you. Like I said, at the time it came out, most Dark Tower fans did not like it. Over time, a lot of them have softened on it, and new readers who haven't had to wait years between these have been fine with it. To me, it wasn't about the wait, because after book 5, we got book 6 like 3 months later, and we got book 7 like 6 weeks after that. So it wasn't about the wait anymore at that point. It was just a storytelling device that just did not work for me. And guys, this ain't nothing. You get it on steroids in the next book. But I'll leave that for the next book. Let's talk about why I think that you guys should read it. Now, look, I've always, like I say this with every one of these Dark Tower videos, if you've come this far, why turn back now? I feel like the 4 is usually the make or break point for people, where if they get past that flashback, because a lot of people, believe it or not, they do not like that flashback. then I don't feel like there's anything that's going to happen in this book that's going to make you be like, I don't want to read anymore. Now, we'll talk about book 6 when we get there. Sorry to keep doing that. But, it's just as quirky, just as unique as it was before. But again, you're not really going much on that progress, but you do get that starting with the next book. But back to your main journey here. The flashbacks are mostly done. There's a couple when you deal with that dash space stuff. You get a little bit more about Elaine and Cuthbert if you did want to know about those things. But it's brief. It's really brief. In fact, I wish there had been more of it. But I think you're really back on the main story now. So if you didn't like that kind of side quest, as some people put it in the last one, I think you'll be happy with this. And look, if you just love the old school stories like old westerns where you got to defend a small town, I think that this is going to be something awesome, just like against incredible odds. That is a storytelling trope that is never going away, and it never gets old. You have to, very, very small group trying to defend a innocent town. It's a lot of fun that never gets old for me. So, as for my final thoughts, guys, yes, waiting 6 years did not help how I felt about this book at the time. Now, I'm going to be honest, I feel mostly the same as I did when I was 25. I still kind of have the same problems with it. I do think it did help knowing what's to come. That's helped me get past some of those things. So, but I don't feel like my opinions changed either way on this. Where I feel like 2, 3, and 4, I already knew that I loved, and I just loved them even more on the reread. This one I feel about the same as I did when it was new, without the disappointment of how far they progressed towards the tower, stuff like that. Obviously, I know where they're going to end up, guys. So that didn't bother me as much this one. But the same problems that I kind of mentioned in the bad stuff there. I kind of feel the same way there. But look, I always love to see this Ka-tet on an adventure. So I'm always going to enjoy that. And that's very much what this is. It's another adventure book where the side quest is kind of progressing the Dark Tower storyline. So knowing what it's coming to, guys, really has helped me set aside some things I didn't like on the first read. And guys, we'll be doing Song of Susanna here on the 19th. So I hope you guys, if you want to play catch up and try to join us, hey, please do. We'd love to have you along. You can drop on the Discord and jump on there, and we will talk to you, because that's what we love to do. We love to talk about this, and it's really just me eating popcorn and listening to the theories of everybody on the Discord. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun from this end, seeing what everybody thinks. But not having to wait 6 years, I think will help a lot of those people a lot. But let's go ahead and talk about some of those multiverse connections before I go, guys. Now, I do want to say up front, these will have some spoilery things. That character that I mentioned from Salem's Lot, I'm going to mention that character now. So I want you guys to turn back. If you have not read this, come back to these connections after. Also, there might be some Easter eggs for later in the multiverse that you didn't want to know about. So I always try to flash that little spoiler warning here. But without further ado, guys, you got 3 seconds, you got 2 seconds, you got 1 second. Okay, first one, the biggest one. Father Callahan is in this book. And guys, Father Callahan is a huge, huge character in this book. A lot of things about basically the whole cast, just about from Salem's Lot, comes up in this book. And it's done in such an awesome, awesome way. I love it. So I really do hope that you guys read Salem's Lot, because I hate for that to be something that was ruined for you. Now, this one I don't really know. Black House, this is someone actually pointed out to me, because I have not read Black House yet. There's a quote in here where where Callahan says, he saw 4 men rescue a little boy from a monster whose entire head seemed to consist of a single eye. Apparently that's referencing something in Black House. Also, Jake and Eddie and Susanna and even Blaine are apparently mentioned in Black House. Like I said, at this point, I feel like he was angling everything within his library towards Dark Tower. So, I can see that very much. Desperation is another one. The Cantoi, the low men, if you will, they are mentioned in there, as well as in the Regulators. The low men are also not only mentioned in there, but also mentioned that Regulators was another name for the big coffin hunters. So there's a nice little tie-in. And then lastly, everything's eventual. There's that character, Skipper Brannigan. It's mentioned in this book that he was a friend of Eddie, and he is a big part in everything's eventual. So guys, lots and lots of multiverse connections. Like I said, this part where he just opened up the floodgates, and it was like just Easter eggs before, and now he's like, no, this is my connective tissue to my entire universe. I'm going to pour it all in here. So little connections like that are a lot of fun, and they're only going to get more as we go along. So go back to that video, guys, that I did about frequently asked questions if you want to know the things that you need to read. Because guys, I am telling you, you should probably read Insomnia before you go any further, but I understand that's a big chunk of a book, and if you don't want to do that, I get it. So, not Song of Savannah, Wolves of the Calla, guys. What did you think? Why don't you drop in the comments below and let me know, and I will talk to you there.